Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this ordinary meeting of Council on the 15th of March 2023. If I could remind those who may have mobile phones to turn them on to silent. Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledge the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders, both past, present and emerging. I'd also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here or watching today. Statement of ethical obligations. As Administrator, I will undertake the duties of the Office of Administrator in the best interest of the people of the Wingecarribee Shire area and to act faithfully and impartially carry out all functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. I am committed to the declarations of conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. Obviously, there are no apologies in respect of this meeting. Minutes, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Yes, Mr. May, if I could just ask that the Manager, Governance and Corporate Performance provide a statement on the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. After the February Council meeting, we uploaded a version of the minutes on Friday, the 17th of February. Since that time, we have updated the minutes and provided a revised version to the Administrator and updated them on Council's website. The Council resolutions remain the same. We've added additional information to provide clarity around proceedings at the meeting.
Thank you. So, all the recommendations are the same. There's just more clarity on some of the items from the discussions that we had. I acknowledge, I think that's a good move, General Manager. So, do I move the amended minutes of the ordinary meeting? Thank you. That the amended minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on 15 February 2023 and as noted on Council's website be adopted as a correct record of the proceedings of the meeting. I declare that carried. Declarations of interest, General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. May. I've received 4 declarations, one from yourself, and that's in relation to item 9.3, the committee reference panels as a non-pecuniary, non-significant, and that's in relation to one of the panel nominations. Richard Colley is known to you professionally as a former General Manager and Administrator. Received a declaration from Mr. Kuzmanowski, the Acting Director, in relation to 9.3, the community reference panel, non-pecuniary, non-significant. One of the panel nominations is a colleague that Mr. Kuzmanowski has played soccer with at Exeter Soccer Club. However, he's declared no involvement in the selection process for any of the members of any of the panels. Ms. Lidgard, in relation to item 9.3, community reference panels, again non-pecuniary, non-significant, and that's in relation to having known Zach Holm, Nikki Freeman socially, and Sky Cannon, who undertook work experience within the community development team at Council. And the final declaration of interest form that we have is from Corinne Buxton, Coordinator Community Development, in relation to item 9.3, and that's in a non-pecuniary, non-significant. Again, I'm noting that she knows Sky Cannon, who undertook work experience in the community development team in 2019, and also Finette Sheether served on the Bundanoon Public School P&C Committee with Corinne back in 2019-20, and Finette currently chairs the Domestic Violence Forum meeting, which community development team members are also on. Thank you, Mr. May.
Thank you for that. There is no administrator minute for this meeting, so we move to the matters listed by the administration. The first matter is the planning proposal to amend Schedule 2 of the LEP regarding public events on bushfire-prone land. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Park, the Executive Manager, Strategic Outcomes, will introduce this item.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, this report relates to a planning proposal to remove the requirement for a development application for certain events on public land that is bushfire prone. So under the current provisions of the Wingecarribee LEP, events on bushfire prone land often require a development application, which is causing community groups a lot of unnecessary stress and costs in preparing DAs for what are often minor community events and as I'm sure you're aware, are really important in towns and villages across the Shire in bringing communities together. So Mr. May, while the planning proposal would, I guess, remove the need for a development application, it's intended that the assessment of the suitability of an event on bushfire prone land would still occur through council's lease and licensing processes for the use of that public land. So Mr. May, the matter was considered at the local planning panel meeting of 22nd of February 2022, and the panel's advice is provided in the body of the report. The panel provided advice to strengthen council's lease and licensing processes to ensure that assessment of the bushfire risk occurs. The panel have advised that occur prior to submitting the planning proposal to a gateway determination. The officer's recommendation in the report recommends that we actually proceed to the gateway determination now, and we prepare the information in consultation with RFS to address the panel's advice, but we do that concurrently while the gateway process is occurring so that we don't lose a matter of months and delay the process. Just also wanted to point out, Mr. May, generally how we present these reports is where the officer's recommendation to the panel is printed in the report. In this case, it was left out. It was an oversight by me, apologies. But I just wanted to be clear that the officer's recommendation to the panel is reflective of item recommendation 1 and 2 in the business paper. And I've provided a copy of that to our governance team to include with the minutes, just so the community are aware of what was recommended by the officers to the panel. And in terms of the recommendation in the report, we have added item 3 to the recommendation so that we can work with the RFS while the planning proposal is going through the gateway process.
You'd almost hear the cheers on Friday night from the villagers when this matter came out, because it's been a matter of concern to them for a long time. And I know you've tried several things, and now I think you've got RFS over the line, I hope, with this. Look, I know that item 3, the officer's recommendation, is intended to pick up the recommendations of the panel, but I just want to overemphasise the recommendations of the panel so that the community can see that there is an audit in these processes. Now, I'm not undervaluing the work of the staff. I just think it's important that the community sees in my view, the panel's made some worthwhile suggestions to even further streamline, which is the benefit of having a peer review by professionals. But again, I emphasise I'm not criticising the staff. So I'd like to move to number 4. Council work with the NSW Rural Fire Service to address the advice of the local planning panel prior to the planning proposal being publicly exhibited. And number 5, the planning proposal to amend Schedule 2, exempt development of the Wingecarribee Local Environmental Plan 2010, to amend the exclusion of bushfire-prone land from the provisions of exempt development for events on public land be provided to all village associations and 355 committees. My new number 4, that's not going to slow you down, is it?
No, Mr. May, so that's largely what the intent of part 3 of the recommendation was, and what we want to do is allow the planning proposal to proceed through the gateway process, and while that is occurring, it lets us do the work that's required in accordance with the panel's advice and in consultation with the RFS.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and in relation to item, oh, and I confirm that you're going to put the original officer's recommendation?
Yep.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
correct.
In relation to item 8.1, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 7 of the business paper, 1, 2 and 3, and the 4 I've just read out, which is on the screen, and the 5 I've just read out, which is on the screen, and declare that carried. The next item is 9.1, Windsor Carriby Shire Community Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Mr. May. Ms. Lidgard, the Manager Governance and Corporate Performance, will speak to this item.
Thank you, General Manager. This report presents a draft, refreshed community strategic plan for endorsement to go on public exhibition. At the meeting held on the 21st of September 2022, Council endorsed a phased approach to the review of the CSP. The first phase commenced in September and is due to conclude in June 2023. This phase includes reviewing Council's community engagement strategy, updating our suite of IPNR documents, including the Community Strategic Plan, and creating structures that will facilitate the implementation of the community engagement strategy. A review of Council's CSP has now been completed. The review process included a desktop research and analysis of relevant policies, plans and strategies, analysis of 2021 census data and the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey results. Consultation with external stakeholders was undertaken by a series of workshop focus groups and surveys, and consultation with internal stakeholders via strategic workshops. Details of the review process are included in attachment 1 to this report. The review process identified the following gaps in the current CSP: an ageing population, improving access to housing, increasing natural disasters and weather events, digital innovation and technology, supporting and retaining young people, our strategic location, rural and slow tourism, supporting people with a disability to access jobs, and creative industries. Based on this review, the CSP strategies have been updated and additional strategies included across the themes of leadership, people, places, economy and environment, and details are outlined in attachment 1. This report recommends the draft refreshed CSP be endorsed for public exhibition for a period of 28 days from the 17th of March through to the 14th of April.
Thank you. I can only imagine the work that has gone into this. When you compare the refreshed document with the Council's earlier adopted document, there's a lot more substance and background information for residents to make judgments in relation to the strategic outlook of the Council. Obviously, this feeds down to the delivery plan and operational plan, and the budget is then built around it. And I note that you're adhering to the General Manager's roadmap and the reports earlier that came to Council about this matter, which is fabulous. I've got a couple of very minor suggestions. Can you explain to me on page 31 the difference between the weekly community update published on Council's website to the e-newsletter distributed to registered subscribers?
The community update is, it places some advertisements. It had information around vacancies, tenders, that go onto our website on a weekly basis, whereas the e-newsletter is distributed weekly on a Friday and provides information updates on things that are happening at Council.
So the e-newsletter, which I call the weekly update, which has recently been revised and refreshed, and which I think is there's been quantum improvements too. It's much more readable. That is the e-newsletter.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thanks very much. On page 80 of the business paper, as distinct from the it's probably easier to find it that way, under leadership and how we will get there, can I make a suggestion? If there's any objection, please, in your professional capacities, let me know. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, it says provide clear and timely information. If I add the word provide open, clear and timely information, was that?
Yeah, we can add that to the document for sure. Yeah.
And on page 93, our community vision, if we could add the word respectful, in my view, we're getting there. But when I arrived here, I think it was one of the issues with the community and the council and the councillors themselves and the councillors and the staff themselves was respect. So how would we go a healthy, productive and respectful community?
We can add those words.
Okay. Well, again, I think everyone involved in this should be congratulated because this is the high level, and it's going to be a great start for an incoming council because we'll have worked on it for in effect 1 and a bit years, but it will drive what's happening in 24-25 in relation to the operational and or the delivery and operational plan. So taking on board, you're happy, put up on the screen, the following amendments be made to the draft refreshed community strategic plan prior to it being placed on exhibition, and page 80, Windsor Carraby 2041 plan on a page, how will we get there under leadership to read open, clear and timely communication. I had another one too, which I marked properly here. On page 88, big issues, include the following dot point, population growth and sustainable infrastructure. And on page 93, in 2041, we will be a healthy, respectful, productive community, learning and living in harmony, proud of our heritage and nurturing our environment. I'm happy to leave number 2 as it is, but I would like to add that's C as it is. I'd like to add a number 2 of my colours here are a bit skew if. Two remains as is, sorry. Number 3, a copy of the draft refreshed community strategic plan be sent to all community organisations and the individuals that submitted an expression of interest to participate in the community reference panels. 4, during the exhibition period, all persons selected to participate in the CRPs, item 9.3 on this agenda, be provided with the opportunity to attend a briefing to discuss the community strategic plan during the consultation period. I will declare that carried. So it's a recommendation on page 29 of the business paper, 1, 2, and the 3, well actually they've changed it around, so it's a new number 2. I'll get myself confused here. Number 1 remains the same. Number 2 is amended. We now go to number 3, 4 and 5. The screen's right, I'm wrong on my notes, sorry. I declare that carried. I didn't say anything in relation to the amendment as outlined in B, but at a high level, what I find in talking to residents, they're concerned that the council hasn't thought strategically about infrastructure. Now, I know that it's in everything you're doing at the moment, but it needs to be acknowledged in our high-level community strategic plan. That's the only reason why I'm suggesting it. Okay, 9.2, community engagement strategy post-exhibition. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Back to Ms. Lidgard to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. This report follows on from the review of the Community Strategic Plan and it's part of our phased approach to that review. So this report provides the outcome of the public exhibition of Council's community engagement strategy and draft community engagement policy and seeks adoption of these updated documents. At the Council meeting held on the 14th of December, Council endorsed the public exhibition of the draft community engagement strategy and policy for public exhibition for 42 days from the 16th of December through to the 27th of January. Public notice of the public exhibition was provided via notifications through your Say Wingecarribee, notification to community contacts including village associations and chambers, weekly community update published on Council's website, the e-newsletter, social media posts and a media release. Focus group and survey respondents who were involved in the review were also advised of the public exhibition. At the end of December, the exhibition was also extended to encourage further submissions on the draft documents. A total of 265 individuals visited Council's online consultation hub. 11 submissions were received with regards to the community engagement strategy. Table 1 provides an overview of the submissions and the amendments recommended based on these submissions. All submissions are included in attachment 1 to this report. 3 submissions were received during the public exhibition period for the draft policy. Again, Table 2 provides an overview of the submissions and any recommendations to make amendments based on these submissions. All submissions are included in attachment 3 to this report. This report recommends adoption of the strategy and policy.
In relation to, and I know they've been on public exhibition and I think there's been valuable contributions by residents, but there's no mention in the advices as to whether the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey informed the final result. Now, I know that happened more or less in parallel, but the report came out before this report was done. Were they taken into account?
Yeah, for both the previous report and this report, the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey results were heavily considered in the development and the review. Some high-level information we were able to obtain early while we were drafting up the community engagement strategy.
Can we have it noted in the minutes that the 2022 community satisfaction informed this?
Yeah.
Look, the reason why I raised the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey, I have a strong view that there's many in the community who rate the council lowly because of access to information. Now, I know there's DA issues, we have issues with the portal versus the DA's online, it's called, is it? Yeah. And there's quite a few issues, but I would like to defer this matter and ask the General Manager to report to the April meeting 2023 on the legality of making council files more accessible to residents and less reliant on GIPA requirements. I understand the statutory obligations of the General Manager and the staff in relation, and the Administrator for that matter, in relation to GIPA, but this place seems to have formal and informal GIPA applications, and I can't work out what's what. So I'm going to defer this matter. If I've given to the Secretariat my suggestion. Now, that the matter be deferred and the General Manager report to the April 23 ordinary meeting of Council on the legality of making council files more accessible to residents and less reliant on GIPA requirements. So in relation to item 9.2, I'm not adopting the recommendation on page 112. I'm going to declare carried the recommendation that I've got on the screen. Now, I'll make it very clear, I'm not questioning statutory obligations under GIPA, but I do think that we can make it easier for residents to get access to information in this place. And I'm very conscious of the fact that there's work being done at the moment with Tech One to bring the government portal in line with the council's portal. But I just think it would be worthwhile to get a more formal acknowledgement of that and basic training for staff to move away from saying you need a GIPA to smiling and say just fill this form out and you can have the information if it's not stuck by GIPA. Okay, 9.3, the community reference panels.
Thank you, Mr. May. So the Acting Director, Mr. Kuzmanowski, will speak to this item.
Thank you, General Manager. At the meeting held on 21 October 2022, Council adopted an engagement structure that comprised of 4 strategically focused community reference panels with the role of reviewing the vision, objectives and goals of the community strategic plan and their translation to the 4-year delivery program, focusing on the following 4 areas. Climate Change and Environment panel chaired by the Manager Environment and Sustainability, Community panel chaired by the Coordinated Community Development as an interim chair until the Manager Community Lives and Libraries is appointed, Sports, Recreation and Leisure panel chaired by the Manager Assets, and the Economy panel chaired by the Executive Manager Strategic Outcomes. In December 2022, Council called for expressions of interest from members of the community for each 4 of these community reference panels. In consideration of the December-January holiday period, expressions of interest were scheduled to close on the 22nd of January 2023. In late January 2023, a review of the EOIs noted a number of strong applicants were received but not broadly representing the Shire's demographics. Based on this, the EOI process was extended to the 5th of March 2023 to allow for further promotion and opportunities for further applications within the channels outlined in the Council report. A total of 81 expressions of interest were received after the process was closed in March 23. Upon publishing this paper, all applicants were notified of being considered at this meeting. The process for inviting technical specialists from relevant government groups or non-government agencies is still underway and will be subject to a further report to Council. Community reference panel meetings are scheduled to commence on the 20th of April, where an induction will be provided following an initial followed by an initial one-hour meeting chaired by the relevant council officer. This report recommends the appointment of the community representatives to Council's newly established community reference panels until September 2024 local government elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I thank those who have put their names forward and congratulate those who have been selected. As you know, I had no role whatsoever in this. It's really an operational matter, accepting at the end of the day endorsing. The dates of the meetings, the Thursday, the 20th of April, is going to be the second one because you're going to have an informal one with everybody together. The 20th of April, is that still going to be okay for the delivery and operational plans to run through, or are you talking at a much higher level?
Oh, sorry, no.
Don't fight over it.
I don't think, and perhaps please join in if you would like. I don't think on the 20th of April we'll be in the position to be discussing the delivery program and operational plan as such with the panels at that point. Maybe some preliminary information.
Just to add to that, Mr. May. So the program for the draft operational plan and budget is to have an extraordinary meeting on the 26th of April, at which time there will be an open briefing for the community to attend, and as part of a workshop on the draft budget operational plan. And then the intention is to have an extraordinary meeting on the 10th of May, where the budget will be endorsed for a public exhibition. So there'll be the opportunity for panel members to come along to that public briefing at the extraordinary meeting on the 26th of April.
So on the 26th of April, will the budget also be discussed, or just the operational and...
To Mr. May, so as you'd be aware, under the Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, the operational plan is supported by the budget and they go hand in hand, so both documents.
And the budget will be, and I don't know how you're going to align the delivery and operational plan with the budget, and my desire to have it by work groups, but no doubt that's under control.
Always, Mr. May. Thank you.
Well, look, I think if there's going to be why is it an extraordinary meeting? Why isn't it just a briefing?
To Mr. May, so part of having an extraordinary meeting, we have a couple of other items that will need to be formally considered by council, and we thought we'd take the opportunity to have a briefing as well as the meeting, and then put the, as I mentioned, briefing on the 26th of April, extraordinary meeting on the 10th of May for endorsement, and that then enables us to bring the draft operational plan and budget back into the normal cycle for the June meeting, and it also takes the pressure off the finance team by having the draft or the budget finalised at the third Wednesday, so we're able to prepare for the commencement of 1 July.
So on the 26th of April, the extraordinary meeting, there'll be other items that the timeline requires, but we'll no doubt we'll go into committee of the whole for a briefing. Thank you. Look, I think that's ample time for input for the reference groups if they want to come to that forum, and everybody can hear everybody else's views too, which I think is excellent. And then the idea is after that, the staff will do whatever they think has merit for the 10th of May, and that is when I've got to look at it to go on public exhibition. Well, I think that's a good timeline. Yeah, thank you. Okay, in relation to item 9.3, I would move the officer's recommendation, starting on page 174, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and declare that carried. Next item is the Bowral Sewerage Treatment Works. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. This is a significant project and, as highlighted before, a strategic piece of infrastructure for our community. Mr. Tripkovic, the Manager Project Delivery, will speak to this item.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, the purpose of this report is to present a summary and an outcome of the direct negotiations for the Bowral Sewerage Treatment Plant Upgrade Project. At Council's ordinary meeting dated 19 October 2022, Council resolved to enter into direct negotiations with Haslam Constructions Proprietary Limited in relation to the tender. Following establishment of a negotiation plan as per the Office of Local Government's tendering guidelines and ICAC's direct negotiations guidelines for managing risk, a team approach was led by senior staff to negotiate in good faith. Whilst the report outlines the fundamentals of the negotiated items, the confidential report provides in more detail the technical and financial considerations undertaken. Numerous technical and innovative items were identified, providing substantial savings to the projects, although further cost escalations resulted from economic drivers and construction volatility has in turn affected the positive results obtained during the negotiations. Council has also taken a risk-adverse approach in relation to exposure to rise and fall adjustments and has chosen to secure a lump sum contract to mitigate effects of further volatility. After the thorough negotiation process, which included numerous subject matter experts and consultants, it has been determined that in the currently overheated market, the outcome of the negotiations presents a value for money proposition. The entire process was overseen by an external probity advisor with the probity report for the negotiations attached. As such, the project will provide treatment capacity to meet current and future demands, improve process and operational performance, meet the infrastructure requirements from the regulator, and protect the sensitive environment which makes part of the Sydney water catchment area. This is a critical and essential infrastructure project the Council is excited to embark upon for the community. Funding sources have been demonstrated in this report, and Council's long-term financial plan has considered the funding required for this project, as well as longer-term implications of the sewer fund, which will be continually revisited to ensure its sustainability. It is therefore recommended that Council enter into a contract with Haslam Constructions for the Bowral Sewage Treatment Plant Upgrade Project at a negotiated lump sum contract price of $54,368,978. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is the biggest contract the council has entered into in a long, long time. It's big ticket, and it's big tech. And I think dealing with this matter transparently and out in the open, and only protecting the technical side of things, I think we should give residents confidence in this organisation. And dealing with tenders in open council, the sky hasn't fallen in so far. So I think I'm confident that's the way to go, and I hope when the elected council comes back, they continue to deal with these matters in open council, not in closed or secret council. Having said that, well done to everybody. I know it's been a long, slow process, and this is the first of three. It's a lot of money, so and as I read this one is going to be the lead for how you do the others.
Yeah, that's very correct, Mr. May. The next two plants will be modelled off the technology used in this one, so there's a lot of consistency in equipment and operation moving forward.
Okay, in relation to item 9.4, I would move the officer's recommendation 1, 2, 3 and 4 as outlined on page 192 of the business paper and declare that carried. Next item is 9.5, Berrima Road.
Yes, thank you, Mr. May. To Mr. Kuzmanowski, Acting Director. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. In March 2022, Council resolved that the General Manager be delegated authority to negotiate with the landowner of the land identified for acquisition in connection with the Berrima Road Deviation Project. When the matter was reported in March 2022, the two stratum lots required for acquisition outlined in this report, being airspace over the railway line, were not included in that report. Negotiations are continuing with the landowner for acquisition by agreement. If an agreement cannot be reached, approval of the Minister is required to issue a proposed acquisition notice setting timeframes for the finalisation of the acquisition by compulsory process. This report is presented to obtain the additional resolution required for the additional acquisitions of the stratum lots. Thank you.
Look, in relation to this matter, I still shake my head how the council got itself into the position it did. But I take considerable confidence, and so should the community, in the election priorities document 2023, which outlines very clearly how strategically to deal with these kinds of matters. I'm going to leave it at that. In relation to item 9.5, the Berrimah Road Deviation Project, I would move the recommendation 1, 2, 3 and 4 as outlined on page 201 of the business paper and declare that carried. Next item is the Southern Highlands Bridge Club lease. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. I wish to table a letter that was received from the Bridge Club yesterday. So the Bridge Club sent through an email, and attached to that email was a letter from or on behalf of the directors of the Moss Vale Golf Club under the name of Mr. Lewis, and I wish to table that for the record and to accompany the minutes. And I will now ask Mr. Kuzmanowski to speak to this item.
Thank you, General Manager. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the request received from the Southern Highlands Bridge Club for a one-off payment of $150,000 in return for the surrender of lease of land forming the part of David Wood's playing fields, Boardman over Bowral. In July 2022, Council resolved that the authority be delegated to the General Manager to action the officer's recommendations, subject to the General Manager being satisfied that any lease agreements between the Bridge Club and the Moss Vale Golf Club are in the community interest. Following the resolution of Council, various minutes have been held between both members of the Bridge Club and Council and members of the Bridge Club and Moss Vale Golf Club. Council has received updated information from the Bridge Club that they have been offered a 5-year lease with a 5-year option from Moss Vale Golf Club. This report sets out the options available to Council and recommends that the requested payments be made on a pro rata basis in line with the lease term negotiated with the Bridge Club and Moss Vale Golf Club. Thank you.
Here we go again with another legacy matter, which, in my view, if it had proceeded, was a complete alienation of public land. I've done my best with this one, and I want to incorporate it into the minutes what I'm going to say, lest there be any misunderstanding. For the record, I would advise that I again met with the Southern Highlands Bridge Club on 7 March and made it very clear that in my view the community interest meant a 20-year occupation. At the time I was advised that the Moss Vale Golf Club had now agreed to a 5+5 term, and I suggested that whilst this was an improvement, there needs to be a binding heads of agreement or memorandum of understanding in relation to a further 10 years in the event that the Bridge Club was still in existence and the Golf Club would provide their best endeavours to provide an equivalent space that was provided in the lease in that event. The letter reported by the General Manager from the Golf Club is unsigned and is not on letterhead. It also notes that the $150,000 suggested would be offset by a rent-free period subject to an independent rent assessment. While it is acknowledged that the $150,000 would be used for repairs to the existing clubhouse, both the General Manager and myself were advised that the initial 10-year lease would be rent-free. Whilst there is some disagreement in relation to the length of the occupation, I am confident that the 20-year term was the basis of negotiation, as I clearly recall for the second term saying you need a community, not commercial rent. In this regard, I take little confidence in the content of the letter dated 4 March 2023 from the Golf Club to Council. I might just say we're dealing with public money here, and whilst the previous council might have been pretty keen on giving the Bridge Club a lease, and they have a valid lease now, we have withdrawn the loan. But I don't think the loan would go very far in building a club. So look, this is a difficult one. I'm prepared to keep negotiating in good faith with everybody, but I'm strongly the view that community interest meant 20 years. And what I'm saying now, and I'm going to amend the officer's recommendation a little bit to accord with what I've just said. So I would move the officer's recommendation number 1 and introduce a new number 2. Council release further pro rata payment up to a maximum of $150,000 upon the Bridge Club securing a further lease or binding occupation agreement to the satisfaction of the General Manager with the Mossvale Golf Club. 2 becomes 3 and 2 becomes 3. Before I move that, General Manager, if you've got anything you want to say in relation to where, I don't want to verbal you, but you're at the meeting with me when we were told that the initial 10-year lease would be free.
So, yes, Mr May, we met with the club representatives on the 16th of June 2022, and at that time my notes were that it was a 10 plus 10 year period and that it would be a rent-free in recognition of the contribution.
Before I put this motion, I don't want anybody thinking that we're not doing anything other than acting in the best interest, we believe, of the community and the Southern Highlands Bridge Club in securing their future. And that's, we'll continue to work that way, but we're dealing with public money. In relation to item 9.6, as I said, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 205 of the business paper. 1, adding a new number 2 as on the screen, and the old 2 becomes, amending the 2 as on the screen, and the 3 remains the same, and declare that carried. 9.7, Kangaloo Road and Hordens Road, Bowral. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr May. To Mr Kuzmanowski, thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. An application was received for the lease of road reserve at the corner of Hordens Road and Kangaloo Road, Bowral. The area requested for lease is approximately 55 square metres and is adjacent to the area of road reserve leased to Milton Park Country House. The area of road reserve currently leased to Milton Park is used for placement of business advertising sign. The applicant for this road lease also wishes to place a business advertisement sign in the proposed leased area outlined in the report. The report deals solely with the road lease, and any signage proposed to be erected on the site would be subject to council development approval processes and the feedback received from the public exhibition. The proposed lease was publicly consulted for a period of 4 weeks, during which time 3 submissions were received. Details of these submissions and responses are outlined in the report. The recommendation is also outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. In relation to item 9.7, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 2 and on the business paper, 1, 2 and 3, and declare that carried. The parliamentary inquiry into the road network, the joint submission with the Canberra region. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr May. The Manager Assets, Mr Robinson, will speak to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr May, the purpose of this report is to seek Council's formal endorsement of the submission made by the Canberra Region Joint Organisation to the parliamentary inquiry into the implications of severe weather events on the road network of the full country. The submission by the Joint Organisation calls on the government to consider 16 actions which largely focus on improving the conditions and the amount of funding provided through the Commonwealth funded programs like Roads to Recovery, Local Road and Community Infrastructure Program, and all the different natural disaster funding arrangements, as well as also calling on the government to strengthen the capacity of the sector through partnering with universities, cadetship and apprenticeship programs, and supporting research into resilience methodologies. So the submission is quite comprehensive, and it draws on information from all 10 member councils, and it's recommended that council formally endorse the submission.
Thanks very much for that. Just for anyone who has an interest in this, If you look on page 222 of the business paper, or page 4 of the report, the natural disasters across the Canberra region, which in effect goes from Wagga to Bega Valley, Snowy Mountains, Queanbeyan, Upper Lachlan, Snowy Valleys, the natural disaster events in the period 2019 to 2022 resulted in $305 million in damage to road and related transport infrastructure costs, of which Wingecarribee has over 90. So 90 million of that 305 million. So if anyone wants to challenge the problems that we have with infrastructure here, and I don't think it's any fault really of the former council or the former staff, it's just a reality, but it needs addressing. And can I just confirm with you, General Manager, that both Mr Jones and Mr Taylor have now agreed to meet with us about this report?
That's correct, Mr May.
Because this is to a federal inquiry, not a state inquiry. And I take my hat off to the Canberra Region CEO and those responsible for taking the running with this. It'll be interesting to see if many other councils, and as I understand it, the organisation has requested to be heard by the inquiry. Thank you. Well, congratulations to all concerned. In relation to item 9.8, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 215 of the business paper and declare that carried. Rates and revenues policies update, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr May. Mr Conrad, the Acting Chief Financial Officer, will speak to this item. Thank you.
Right, perfect. Technology and I.
You had a trial run last meeting.
Well, I know, right? I was looking at the wrong screen. There's a button. Anyway, this report presents updates to some financial policies that were last updated several years ago to align these to the current economic climate. The debt recovery policy and hardship policy were last presented to council some 10 years ago, while the water determination policy dates back to 13 years. These policy updates are intended to support the ratepayers and debtors to more effectively manage their rates and water payments. To further complement these policy updates, Council will be introducing a new direct debit solution in coming months, which will enable ratepayers to self-manage their rates and water debts in line with these policies. In highlighting some key changes to the debt recovery policy and hardship policy, upon adoption of the new policy, the existing hardship policy and debt recovery policy will be combined. The combined policy will consider hardship on a case-by-case basis, with payment arrangements extended from 12 to 24 months. Also, consistent parameters will be applied to debt recovery actions on water and sewer, as well as the rate accounts. And there's more detail around how council charges for legal recovery actions. Some highlights on the water determination policy. Historically, residents could only apply for one water determination in ownership period. It is now being reset to every 7 years for ownership. And the policy also outlines some provisions and considerations around extreme weather events that prevent us from identifying leaks. The debt recovery and water determination policies will be placed on public exhibition for 28 days, and another report will be tabled if feedback is received.
General Manager, how, in percentage, rough percentage terms, with policies, how many have we done? Have you got any idea? This is 10 years old, this policy, which I think is, other councils I've been at, is unheard of, 10 years before reviewing something. The council has an obligation every 4 years. But You got any idea where we're up to?
I think I'll take, Mr Mayor, I'll take that one on notice. I know that we're progressively working through policies, but we have also created new policies
Oh,
as
yeah.
well in the last 18 months, so we'll take that on notice.
Yeah, I'm just interested to where we're up to with it. Thanks for that. In relation to item 9.9, I'd move the officer's recommendation on page 283 of the business paper 1 and 2 and declare that carried. Financial reserves policy update, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Back to Mr Conrad. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Council adopted the financial reserves policy in June 2022, so it's a recent one. This report provides an update on that adopted policy based on the items identified as part of the current budget process, as well as some recent council resolutions. The service unit reserve is to be deleted and remaining reserve balances to be transferred to the capital works reserve to prioritise essential ICT capital works. The capital works reserve scope will be broadened to include ICT capital works. The scope of the election reserve will be broadened to include the development of integrated planning and reporting documents in line with council election cycles. And at the December 22 council meeting, it was resolved to create a new car parking contributions reserve to facilitate car parking solutions within the Bowral area. The financial reserves policy is to be placed on public exhibition for 28 days, with the report to council to be tabled if any feedback is received.
Thanks for that. In relation to item 9.10, I would move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 as outlined on page 304 of the business paper and declare that carried. Item 9.11, the ordinary election, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr May. Ms Lidgard will introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. This report advises of the current cost estimate for the administration of the Wingecarribee Shire ordinary election that's scheduled to be held in September 2024, as well as potential financial impacts resulting from reforms related to the councillor conduct framework. At the council meeting held on the 15th of December, council resolved to enter into a contract for the New South Wales Electoral Commission to administer the Wingecarribee Shire local government election. On the 30th of January 2023, the New South Wales Electoral Commission advised of the estimated cost for the Wingecarribee Shire election being just over $440,000. Additionally, on the 3rd of March, the Minister of Local Government issued a media release announcing support for a new councillor conduct framework being developed and has also released an implementation roadmap. The roadmap is included in attachment 1 to this report. The roadmap identifies updating and enhancing induction, training and professional development initiatives. Council officers are currently investigating the estimated financial implications of these reforms, and a budget estimate will be provided for the revised training as a part of the 2023-24 budget so that we can implement these reforms.
Thanks very much. So you've entered into a formal contract with the Electoral Commission to conduct the election in September 2024. Thank you. I just got a little bit more I'd like to add to this recommendation. If you can bring it up on the screen, I can read it. I agree with number 1, but to put it beyond doubt, number 2, Council note the Councillor Conduct Framework Implementation Roadmap 2023 include in attachment 1 to this report, and the additional funding be included in the 23-24 budget for pre-election candidate councillor induction and councillor professional development training. And 3, when there is more clarity from government in relation to its implementation roadmap, the General Manager report on pre-election candidate councillor induction and professional development training for Wingecarribee Shire Council. I'm moving number 3 in particular because I think we really need to see what the government is saying in relation to candidate training. Having regard, I think we should be sticking along the lines of the recommendations of the public inquiry about what is needed in this place, because it would be a tragedy if the circuit breaker that's been provided wasn't acknowledged and worked towards, in my view. So I think it's important that the General Manager report back on what you think may be supplementary or additional. I don't know, that's up to your professional view. Okay, in relation to item 9.11, I would move the officer's recommendation number 1 and add 2 and 3 as outlined on the screen, and declare that carried. Next item is bus shelter update.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Robinson, Manager Assets, will introduce the item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. May, the purpose of this report is to provide an update on actions arising from the 11th of August 2021 Council meeting in relation to a completion of an audit of bus stops and bus shelters, as well as the development of a policy to manage commercial advertising on bus shelters. Unfortunately, as a result of resourcing constraints and competing priorities, no real progress has been made on this specific matter to date. However, that withstanding, with the team now at full resourcing, a 5-stage plan has been developed, consisting of an audit, community consultation, development of a strategy, preparation of a policy, and then an eventual report back to Council at the 21st of June Council meeting. It's therefore recommended the Council receive and note this report and also endorse the reporting back of the outcomes of the action plan to the June meeting.
Thanks for that. In relation to item 9.12, I would move the officer's recommendation outlined on page 232 of the business paper 1 and 2 and declare that carried. Macquarie Pass.
Yes, thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, General Manager. Again, the purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update on Macquarie Pass as per the actions of Council meeting 20th of April 2022. So some background, Macquarie Pass is the 8-kilometre section of the Illawarra Highway that passes through Macquarie Pass National Park. The Illawarra Highway itself is a state road, and so it is under the care and control of Transport for New South Wales. And they have placed heavy vehicle restrictions on Macquarie Pass currently. So Macquarie Pass is prohibited to all B doubles, as well as all vehicles that pass along. The pass itself must be no more than 19 metres long and 2.5 metres wide. Through consultation and communication with Transport for New South Wales, it's understood that Transport currently has no plans for any major upgrade of Macquarie Pass and is instead just focusing on targeted safety and resilience upgrades along the entirety of the Illawarra Highway corridor, but also looking to explore innovative solutions to the 2 hairpins that are towards the top of Macquarie Pass. That withstanding, Transport has advised that further restriction of the pass to heavy vehicles could be investigated and considered through the completion of several traffic and economic studies. And so it is recommended that Council receive and note this report, that we do continue to support Transport for New South Wales in their management of Macquarie Pass, but also that Council looks to meet with state and federal members to secure funding for these traffic and economic studies.
Thanks for that. In relation to this report, will it be made available to the Robinson community through the CTC and also the village community and whoever else has an interest?
Mr. May, we can certainly make it available through the Robertson Communication Networks. Yep.
That'd be fabulous. Okay, in relation to item 9.13, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 as outlined on page 327 of the business paper and declare that carried. Water determination, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Back to Mr. Conrad. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. This report seeks to Council approval for providing additional support to a resident after leaks were identified and fixed on their property, which resulted in a near $23,000 water bill. The normalised water usage charge would have been $740 for that period. Water determination under Council's adopted water determination policy has been applied to this notice, providing some relief of just shy of $11,000. This report seeks to recognise the urgent steps taken by the resident and challenges faced in locating and fixing the leak, as well as the significant financial value of the resulting water charge, and recommends approval of a once-off adjustment of $5,491.30 to assist this resident in paying their near $23,000 water bill.
Much for that. So really, it's just saying it's had to come to council because there's no delegations. Yeah. I just wonder whether, if there were smart meters, whether it be at the property or along the system, whether something like this would have been picked up. But I can ask that question. You won't have a clue. I haven't got a clue either. But I can ask that question further along just to find out, just of interest. In relation to item 9.12, I'd move the officer's recommendation 1 and 2 as outlined on page 334 of the business paper and declare that carried. 9.15, the Robinson Sewerage Scheme loan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conrad. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Council borrowed $4.5 million in April 2013 for the Robertson Sewage Scheme, with repricing to occur every 5 years. Currently, there's some $2.7 million outstanding on this loan. This report presents two options with regard to the loan, being either settlement of the loan or refinancing in April 2023. There are a number of significant projects in Council's pipeline, such as the SES and Animal Shelter Facility, the Welby Rehabilitation, and the upgrades of the sewage treatment plants, where funding will be derived from existing reserves, grant funding, as well as additional borrowings. While repaying the loan will reduce Council's cash position for investment purposes, reducing borrowings will likely be seen as a favourable fact by potential lenders. Refinancing at current market rates will result in interest of some $890,000, requiring funding over the next 10 years on this particular loan, which is an increase of $413,000 from the current interest rate used for the LTFP. This obviously will require adjustments to Council's budget and LTFP. Council has adequate reserves in the sewer fund to effect the $2.7 million repayment in April and recommends settlement on this loan in April over refinancing this loan.
Did I read somewhere where the government's changed the rules and councils and administration can now get loan money through Treasury? I forget what it's called. TCOR?
I have not heard of that update, so I'll need to take that on notice, Mr. Administrator. Yeah.
I think so.
I'll double check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In relation to item 9.15, the Robinson Sewerage Scheme loan, I'd move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 337 of the business paper and declare that carried. There is no introduction of the investments report, accepting an observation that we're doing well, but I don't know whether you can cheer that or not, because a lot of people are doing badly. In relation to item 9.16, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 340 of the business paper and declare that carried. General Manager, that's it?
Almost. Mr. May, if I may, we have an important update on a significant milestone with the Station Street project, and I'd like to ask the Director, Service and Project Delivery, to update you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr. May. Station Street is set to reopen to two-way traffic tonight, which is almost 2 weeks ahead of schedule. Our decision to trial a new bitumen pavement and construction methodology was critical in enabling Council to reopen the road ahead of the Easter holidays. Parking lanes along the length of Station Street will remain temporarily closed to enable construction crews to safely complete the footpath and driveway improvement works. The new 140-space car park located at the southern end of Station Street will remain open. Following the Easter break, Council will temporarily close the road overnight to enable the final asphalt wear and line marking work. Contractors will also commence work within the Northern Commuter Car Park located adjacent to the Borough train station.
Thanks for that. A resident has raised with me as you come out of the car park, which no one was ever going to use, but looks like it's about 70% full all the time to me. You come out of the car park. I only know the southern location where they pointed it out to me. I don't know whether there's another one, but you come out of the car park in a kind of the pedestrian exit or entry onto grass. Is that going to be concreted to the curb, or remain grass, or take it on notice?
I probably need to take that on notice. There's still footpath works and landscaping works to be finalised in that location, but I'm not sure about the exact location.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Just sorry I didn't raise it with you, but someone mentioned it to me. Okay, well that's good. And whoever came up with this smart idea, thank them.
I will do that.
Alrighty, no further business. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.